In our neck of the woods, sports is tradition. Sports is passion. Sports is family. Sports is fun. Welcome to our house. This is Southeast Sports Plus Live with Simone Eli and Gerhard Mathangani.
Well, there's an old saying that the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Basically, that two parties can get together against a common opponent. That could be what's going on here, as Billy Napier, the former Florida head coach, was seen at Georgia's practice just ahead of what? The Texas-Georgia game. Of course, Florida, Billy Napier had a lot of success against the Longhorns, getting the win there in the swamp. And these two coaches, of course, former Nick Saban disciples, are getting together. And once again, Billy Napier with some time on his hands saying, you know what, let me help out my guy, Kirby Smart, as he gets ready for the Texas Longhorns. So welcome into Southeast Sports Plus. Gerhard Mathangani joined by Patrick Walsh. Patrick, I think why this headline was really intriguing to me is the timing of it. Billy Napier's been out of a job for a while, and just now he moseys on over to Athens right before the kickoff of a huge game.
We talked, you said about a month ago now, ahead of the Georgia-Kentucky game, that Mark Stoops might be trying to hype up Kirby Smart to try and get a spot on his staff. Well, who knows? Maybe Billy Napier is trying to get a spot on Kirby Smart's staff heading over to Athens this week ahead of the game against Texas. And I think it's a great idea. I mean, yeah, they were rivals when Napier was at Florida and then Kirby at Georgia. That's one of the oldest rivalries you can find around the sport. But I think it's a great idea. Yeah. He obviously had success against Texas this year. It's the last time Texas lost.
Right.
And I mean, again, looking at this week for Texas, we'll talk more about Texas later, but they're coming off an open week. The last time they came off an open week, they lost.
Right.
And it's a big game against Georgia.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think when you break down this matchup, and we've talked about it before with Texas and Georgia, the defenses for both these teams are very, very different going into it. But Billy Napier was able to scheme up a game plan where DJ Lagway, their quarterback, as you see, had his best game up to that point in the season. Now, I don't know if the same will work with Gunnar Stockton because, of course, it's a different skill set. But I do think that Billy Napier can drop some little nuggets of information here to let the coaching staff know, the offensive coaching staff, and Kirby Smart know, hey, this will work against what we saw from Texas defense.
Well, if you go back to the Florida Texas game earlier this season, there was one guy that really stood out, and it was Dallas Wilson in his first collegiate game.
That's right.
6 catches, 111 yards, and a couple of touchdowns. That's the best debut by any Florida wide receiver in program history, and that definitely helps. So who does Georgia have that could be a Dallas Wilson type? Zachariah Branch.
Yes, that's right.
He's coming over from, I believe it was USC last year. He has got to get into the secondary and make those explosive plays. We've talked all season about how Georgia doesn't really have that explosive play capability.
Right.
He's a guy that can definitely do it. And against Texas, a team that a couple of weeks ago, they kind of let up on Vanderbilt. And Vanderbilt started chunk play. You can make the argument it was garbage time and you're just playing prevent. But still, I mean, there's the opportunity there.
Yeah, this game also being on the road, another road game for Texas. I also think that there's some things that Billy Napier can tell. Hey, maybe if you're a support staff or if you're game day operations crew, does these certain things at these certain times, late in the play clock, or just whatever, some smaller things. I think more the nuanced things, because the similarities are really parallel with both these teams. But like you said, since then, Texas hasn't lost. And since then, their quarterback has played some really good football as of late. Do you expect Arch to continue that? Or do you expect Billy Napier to tell Kirby some things defensively that they could scheme some things up to really throw Arch off his game?
Well, I think, again, it's going to come down to the pass rush, and that's just what we've talked about with Georgia all year. We've seen when Arch gets pressured in his face, he doesn't really perform as well as you might expect a preseason Heisman candidate to perform.
Right.
Now, when you go up against the Vanderbilt defense, which, they've had that bend, don't break mentality all season long. Yeah, they'll keep you off the scoreboard, but it's because they lure you into these going for it on fourth down deep in their own territory, and that's where they get the stops.
Right.
So Vanderbilt's going to give up yards. Mississippi State is also going to give up yards. And you just don't know what you're going to see out of Arch Manning coming off an open week because it wasn't pretty. They thought that they found something against Sam Houston leading up to the open week earlier in the season.
Right.
And then he came out flat in the Florida game. I know he had some good stats to end the game, but again, that was garbage time, as we like to call it.
That's exactly right. We got a chance to hear from Kirby Smart about that pass rush and some growth that he has seen so far with his football team.
Yeah, it's a challenge every play. There's 6 gaps, sometimes 7 gaps up there you got to fill, and you can't fill them all. So you got to rush intelligently and violently, and those two don't always mix. So it's hard to do that and contain the quarterback. We've had some opportunities to get sacks that we've capitalized on. We had a couple chances on normal down stuff the last week with Mississippi State's style of play, but it'll be key this week for sure because Arch is really good. They're really good at protection. They know what they're doing. They've got different protections, and that's a challenge every week for our defense to try to affect the quarterback. I've been really proud of the consistency in practice. So I don't know that that's an improvement. I think that is a staple of this team. They have committed to practicing the right way and improving in a time when some teams are going the other way.
I find this really interesting with Georgia because they have Texas now. They have Georgia Tech to end off the season. And Georgia, to me, is in a really interesting position as it relates to the college football playoff as well, because there are a lot of things that can happen around them. With Alabama, of course, they still have the Iron Bowl to play. Texas still has Texas A&M to play throughout this season. Where do you see this Georgia team as it stands right now? Because in years past, I think we've been able to define Georgia in a more crystallized form. This year, I feel like we're doing it's Georgia on the helmet, it's Georgia on the logo, it's Kirby on the sidelines, but it doesn't look the same from the outside looking in.
Right, and honestly, if Georgia wins this game and Alabama loses, there's a chance that Georgia could lock up a spot in the SEC championship.
Right.
Because if I'm not mistaken, this is their last SEC game.
Yes.
And I don't remember who they play next week, and then they have the clean old-fashioned hate to end the year.
Right.
Right. Where are you seeing it?
Okay. Yeah, I picked that up. Yeah, Charlotte.
Yeah. So they got Charlotte, and then they've got Georgia Tech to end the year, which you want to get into Georgia Tech because, I mean, speaking of Florida, there was a UF plane apparently spotted in Peachtree, Georgia, which is right outside Atlanta, and there's been some rumors about this guy Brent Key.
Yep.
He's tried to downplay it, but honestly, I could see him headed to Gainesville.
Okay, this is where I wanted to go next because of what we've seen in the college football coaching carousel. We know all the hot names. We've been talking about them for weeks because all these coaches were fired so early. We were already doing the hypotheticals of filling those jobs. Talked a lot about John Summerall. We've obviously talked a lot about John Gruden as well. And there's some other names, Eli Drinkwitz, there's Brent Key, these other guys that are already with Power 4 schools that aren't necessarily at Power 4 power programs.
Right.
Like a LSU, like a Florida. Right. This situation with Brent Key, do you see it as a fit, or do you see it kind of the way that Florida has done here recently and striking out a lot?
I see it as a fit. I mean, Brent Key, he basically revived the Georgia Tech program. I mean,
that's true.
Heading into this season, a lot of people thought that Georgia Tech was going to be a contender in the ACC, and rightfully so. I mean, I go back to even last year. They come out, open the gate. Yeah, we saw what happened to Florida State. They didn't end up pretty good last year. I think they finished 2-10. But still, Florida State came into that season 13-0 in the last season before a loss to Georgia in the bowl game.
Yep.
And they went to Ireland and they beat Florida State on a game-winning field goal. And then that just started the momentum right there with Haynes King. And I honestly think there was one play that really changed the game against Georgia. And honestly, they could have knocked Georgia potentially out of the college football playoff.
Yeah, they could have. And Georgia Tech's going through a really interesting season there. as well, and they obviously, like you said, they have a chance to be able to knock them out. Here's some sound from Coach Brent Key of the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets.
Like that. That's flattering. That's awesome. Yeah, people have texted me. All of a sudden, you got a bunch of new friends. People think you're up for jobs and stuff. Oh, people can't talk to them 5 years in the profession, or texting you and calling you. I was like, what in the world are these people calling me for right now? Like we lost the game on Saturday. I get it. Yes, we got to. Oh, thanks, babe. My wife. Maybe I don't know. I'm an idiot. It's flattering. It's flattering, but not for me. It's for this program. Since I came back here, since I was named the head coach here, Kelly, outside of the time with my family, every waking second of my life is going towards building this program to get to the point that it is right now. Right? So that in turn we can continue 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, continue to elevate this place. Right? To be in that conversation. Not to be in there for 2 or 3 weeks, but to be a consistent team. Not when you lose one game, people say, oh, the storybook's over. Nah, it's just beginning. I could go on and on. I could say yes, no, all that crap. Slice me open and see what colors I bleed.
He's talking a big game where I think even if he means it. I really do. I think I don't think he's trying to like quell off the questions.
Right.
But the sound will not sound really good if he does take another job at the end of the season. Now I know he's downplaying it and he hasn't said no to anything specifically, but it does to me sound like he's wanting to reassure Yellow Jacket Nation that he's sticking around.
But this is also the same things that we've heard before.
Bingo. And that's what I was going to ask you.
I mean, yeah, slice me open, see what colors I bleed. Buddy, I think it's going to be orange and blue.
Yeah.
You're going to be doing this here pretty soon.
If not orange and blue, they bleed dollar green. You know what I mean? Like, it's enough to where
maybe
the
purple
money,
and gold too.
Exactly. This actually harkens back to what we saw a couple of weeks ago. Coach Silverfield over at Memphis was kind of the hot name tied to the Arkansas job. It got one of our friends, and it got a lot of people on social media.
Yes.
They go out the next week. They lose to Tulane, the 38-32. Georgia Tech already lost.
And keep in mind that game wasn't really close until the fourth quarter.
Correct.
I think they made like a 21-point comeback just to even make it a game.
Yes, they scored 15 unanswered there in the fourth quarter. Like you said, just to even make it a game. And then in the week before that, you had Georgia Tech, who lost to NC State. And I'm not saying these two things are tied. I'm just saying that it's really kind of hard to say that teams don't the players. These messages don't seep into the players as well, and maybe that's some of the things that we've seen over the last few weeks.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm going to make a comparison here to one of my takes that I've been very outspoken about is Lane Kiffin staying at Ole Miss.
Yeah.
And here's why I see Brent Key leaving Georgia Tech and not Lane Kiffin leaving Ole Miss.
Right.
This would be a great opportunity for Brent Key. I know he's trying his best to make Georgia Tech a program, but I would still say Florida is still a much better program than Georgia Tech. There's more money. The recruits are better. I mean, you've got the whole state of Florida to work with, and that's a great home field advantage there. I don't really see Georgia Tech as a great home field advantage too much.
Yeah.
The reason why Lane Kiffin is not staying is because he's already done this. That's the reason why he is staying.
Right.
He already tried to go to USC, and that failed.
Yeah.
I just don't see him. He seems like a completely different person now.
Right.
And he's already gone through this cycle of, that's the best job available. I want to go do it. I don't really care.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been there, done that, and it didn't work out for him, and it hurt him.
Yeah. And I think, to me, too, that there is a sense of, if you don't have shiny object syndrome, if you've already been to, quote unquote, the mountain and you've seen the lookout from there, and then it's like, okay, well, I've seen it from here. Now I actually like this little place down here. Now down might be down as far as job consideration, or the stakes of what the job is, or it could just be like, hey, I'm more content here, whether it's a city like Oxford or whatever. And I'm right there with you. I just think that there's not that sense with Lane, which it could be maybe with Coach Key. Maybe, you don't know.
Again, the same thing is Ole Miss is pretty much a lock, barring some miracle disaster that comes in the next few weeks.
Yes.
Georgia Tech is going to need some help to get in.
Right.
They're going to need Miami to lose again.
Yeah.
They're going to need Louisville to lose again.
Yeah. And if you're at Florida, you don't need those breaks to go your way because you're playing in a conference that gives you the right to lose a couple of games. We're talking about a possible 3-loss Texas team possibly being able to make the college football playoff. You won't need those help. You won't need that help at Florida like you do at Georgia Tech, especially this year. We'll see how it all shakes out there with Coach Brent Key. Coming up next here on Southeast Sports Plus, we talk the big matchup between Alabama and Oklahoma coming up next. Welcome back to Southeast Sports Plus. We are closing out a week, a very exciting week, both on the court and on the gridiron as well. Alabama and Tuscaloosa right now, it is a great time to be in Tuscaloosa. If you're a sports fan, it's obviously a basketball team that came in ranked top 10 in the country and a football team that is inching closer to the college football playoff. We head over to Birmingham and check in with Scott Griffin. Scott, I'll tell you what, if you are a fan of athletics overall, I know football is king in the South and in Alabama, but this basketball team has been really interesting. I know that they lost last night. We'll dive into the court stuff first before we go to the other matchup on the gridiron there in Tuscaloosa. But this Alabama basketball team had a big win in Madison Square Garden in a huge spot against Rick Pitino and St. John's. Came back, nice effort, did not play their best against Purdue. What'd you make of the game last night and just the atmosphere around Tuscaloosa this week?
You're being too nice because Nate Oates was not happy with their effort.
He was
That's
angry.
all rebounding is. Look at that guy getting up. That's a big 7-footer they have at Purdue last night. Purdue played fantastic. Of course, they were number 1 in one poll, number 2 in another poll. They had 19 offensive rebounds, and they out-rebounded Alabama by 24. And those are effort plays, right? Yeah. So now Alabama's down a couple of big guys, but they still have a couple of big guys that play. But as you know, Noah Williamson and Aiden Sherrill like to play away from the basket too. But if they do that and drift out behind the arc, then somebody's got to crash the boards. So it was not a good performance by Alabama. What's weird is they hit 16 threes. There's Noah Williamson right there. You see where he's shooting?
Yep.
Right behind the arc. He's 7 foot tall. But not that he can't do that, because he hit one or two, I think. But 6 turnovers is all they had. And 16 made threes. You would think they win if I tell you that before, right?
Yep.
And it was close, obviously. It was 80-80 with a couple of minutes to go when Houston Millette hit that 3, but they had to foul down the stretch, and Brendan Smith was not going to miss free throws. So they got whipped by a bigger physical rebounding team that's really good defensively. They packed it in, made them shoot outside, and so 2/3 of their shots were outside. As you guys know, they like to drive and get some fouls and create through contact, and they only had 10 free throws at home because they were a jump shooting team. So there were a couple of issues last night.
Yeah, this is, to me, a team that you mentioned the big guys are there's a couple that are still finding their way. LeBaron Philon's a guy from down this way. He seemed early on find his groove. I know Aiden Holloway had a good game yesterday there as well. What do you make of the guards for this basketball team? That I know they chucked up a lot of threes yesterday, but obviously they'll be important as this year goes along, LeBaron and Aiden.
I think they got among the best guards in America.
Yeah.
They played great against St. John's. So in that kind of game where St. John's tried to run with them and play with them, they were good. And look, they're big enough to go to the boards and help out rebounding as well. And they did not do that last night. Not that falls all on them, because the starting front court for Alabama had 6 total rebounds. The starting front court for Purdue had 24. Wow. So it wasn't close.
Yeah.
But they can all shoot. They're big. They engage defensively. Holloway's better defensively. You saw what he did last night with 5 threes there. Philon had some good effort defensively against Smith. Reitzel always brings it. Millette. So, I think they're really good at the guard area. I think they're deep. They're good. And then you throw on Amari Allen, who can swing there, although he's grabbing boards like crazy, and some other guys. I would love to see Jalil Bethea, the transfer from Miami, get healthy and get out there, but he hasn't done that yet. So, I wouldn't trade any of them for any group on any team anywhere. But they need a defensive presence in the paint and rebounder, and that was exposed last night.
Scott, while we're on the topic of guard play, there was another guy on the other side of the court for Purdue, and Braden Smith came in, Naismith Player of the Year hype, dropped 29 on Alabama. I wasn't able to watch the game last night, but it just, looking at the box score, it seemed like he was unguardable.
Yeah, he's really good, and he knows how to draw fouls. That's what he did late. He's very heady, obviously. He's got a great stroke. You can see that with the elbow tuck and the ball in the fingertips right there. He's tough. He's cocky. He's confident, and he knows how to get in the paint and draw fouls. So he gets to the free throw line, which he did at the end of the game. He hit 5 threes, I think, off the top of my head. Can really shoot outside. He's only about 6'2". I'm not sure about him at the next level. I think he'll be solid, but I'm not sure he's John Stockton II, like everybody's saying. But he does shoot well. So he's a very, very good player, and they put multiple defenders on him, and he still got his points. A scorer is going to get his points, right? So even when he had bad stretches, he knew how to get to the free throw line, and then he's a 90-plus free throw shooter. So
no question about it. Nate Oates brutally honest about his team in the postgame sound.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, the tougher team won tonight. Like, they all rebounded us by 24. That's embarrassing. You know, in life, in sports, team that plays harder, people that work harder, and whatever field you're in, should win. And they won. They deserved to win. They were tougher. My guess is they prepared better coming into the game than we did. And we're going to have to fix some stuff. I mean, their offensive rebounding rate was 48%. That lead the country in a year. We've got major problems on the backboard. You know, their starting front court had 24 rebounds. Our starting front court had 6. So that's a problem. The other issue is their point guard and Braden Smith's. I think he's the best point guard in the country. I mean, we'll see how it plays out, but I think he showed it tonight. I mean, 29, 7, and 4 is pretty good. You know, he has 7 rebounds. Our leading rebounder is 4.
Next up for Alabama, it is another top 20 matchup, top 15 matchup, according to the polls right now, in Chicago against the University of Illinois and the Fighting Illini there. I think this is a really interesting basketball team, in my opinion, to follow, because a game like that, in my opinion, a game like Purdue can really show you the gap from where you are to where the elite teams are. Do you expect there to be a little bit of carryover going into that game against Illinois?
Well, I would hope they would have all their P's and Q's lined up and be just salivating to hit the boards and come out and prove themselves again on the road. Then they got Gonzaga after that, who played Creighton the other night, and Gonzaga looks strong as well. So they've got a little, tournament stretch here. And I asked Nate Oates last night on the presser, was this by design? Did he schedule Purdue and St. John's, but St. John's was kind of a late schedule, so he just put it in there. Right. But it works out well for them. And to your point, with Illinois sitting out there and then Gonzaga. But, look, they got 12 teams that are ranked. Most of them are in the non-conference that'll be coming on this schedule. They always schedule tough. So that's the way you get ready. As he said at the SEC Media Days, he would rather go 10-6 and know what he's got on his team than go 14-2 and have no idea what's happening with his team. So, it'll be interesting to see how they bounce back, though, to your point, for sure.
For sure. You get the luxury in college hoops to lose a few games early and still make a run at a championship. Not the case with football. However, a top 15 team does come to Tuscaloosa this week, a big matchup against Oklahoma. We all remember what happened last year, basically the playoff hopes dashed essentially in that football game. As you break down this year's matchup between the Tide and Sooners, what comes to mind and some of the things that Alabama needs to do to execute to not only keep this winning streak going, but also beat the Sooners?
Eventually, they got to run the ball. You heard me screaming early in the year about attempts. Yeah. So, and I think attempts are more important than yards. People think I'm crazy, but it really is. And if I remember correctly last week, I think they only had 15 from the running back position. You can double check me on that, but that's not enough.
Yeah.
And a lot of people count the wide receiver runs and all that, but I really think running the football with your backs is very key. You got to take pressure. Now, Todd Simpson's answering the call so far, but they're really putting a lot of pressure on him. Now, not talking about pressure on him like to sack him, but pressure on him to carry the offense with not much of a running game. And I wish Ryan Grubb and Kalen DeBoer would get into that. I don't know why they're not good at it. I think they just don't maybe work at it as much. They've got so much complexity to their offense maybe. I don't know. But you got to run the football some.
Scott.
And I just don't think they do it well enough. And Oklahoma, I don't know what they'll do, Patrick. I don't know if they'll try to stop the run and make them throw.
Well, here's the thing.
Right? Or the other.
Right.
Oklahoma, their defense is good at stopping the run. We just had Holden Kruismark on yesterday from Oklahoma City, and he's like, I don't understand why teams try to keep on running the football against Oklahoma because they get gashed on the outside when they get – I mean, in the last 2 games, they've allowed 700 passing yards to Joey Aguilar and John Mateer, or Joey Aguilar and Trinidad Chambliss.
Yeah, but you still have to. Yeah. Because if you totally just go, we're not running at all, then they're going to start bringing guys, and you got issues because you got to still block, there. And Ty Simpson obviously has some escapability, but I just think you still have to run it some. Again, I think the attempts are more important than the yards, but you got to make sure that they can't sell out.
Keep them on their toes, basically.
Just like running teams have to throw downfield some.
Right.
It's the same concept. You can't just totally run. You know, Army, Navy will pop one down there in the old days when they played wishbone for sure, just to keep you honest so you don't fall asleep. So it'll be interesting. But, you know, we may see Patrick Ty Simpson throw 47 passes. I don't know.
Yesterday.
Exactly. We got a chance to hear from Alabama offensive coordinator Ryan Grubb on Coach Brent Venables' defense.
Very multiple. They do a great job. Coach Venables has obviously been around a long time, knows how to do it. Is a guy that's going to look to attack your weaknesses, and he's got a very specific game plan for each offense. I think that's what makes him somewhat unique, is that how he attacks Ole Miss isn't necessarily how he attacks Texas, and so on and so forth. So I think, you know, the multiple looks up front, they got a lot of defensive looks as far as the secondary and how they match their fronts. They do a really good job mixing that up, utilizing their personnel in different ways. They got a big kid, number 5, who is kind of like the Simmons kid they had at Clemson. They move him all over the field, and he's super athletic. So yeah, they create different pictures for you, which as an offensive guy, you know, I can really look at and appreciate. So he's going to make you earn it.
Scott, let's flip the matchup now with the Bama defense on the field against John Mateer and this offense. We've seen a few times where mobile quarterbacks give Alabama a little bit of issues. What's the key, do you think, for Kane Womack in that defense as they prepare for Mateer in an offense that seems to be not necessarily back to what they were, but getting close?
Yeah, maybe. You know, Alabama seems to have that defense that looks kind of horrible at the first of a game. So I think teams have to really score when they can. So I think the start of a game and the start of a second half, it seems like Alabama's defense gets exposed and they make adjustments or something happens and they get pretty good. So if I'm Mateer, I've got that dialed in to at least try to score a couple of touchdowns at the beginning and then out of the second half and see what happens, because this could be a 17-14 game. So a couple of touchdowns might be good enough. Yeah, and every running quarterback gives defenses problems, I think. You know, that's just typical. I don't think Alabama will spy on him and assign somebody to him, but they could. And, you know, I think Alabama will just play their normal stuff. They'll try to pressure him, and if everybody stays in their lanes to rush him, they should have good success. Yeah. I mean, you know, it's not like they haven't played any good quarterbacks all year. So that's going to be interesting as well. The good news for Alabama is obviously it's at home. So, you know, that will bode well for them. And they've got that chip from having get embarrassed last year, 24-3. So that should be enough for them to win the football game, which I expect them to do. But it's a dangerous game for sure.
Absolutely. Do you have a score prediction?
I think it's going to be low scoring. Okay. You know, maybe 24-17 or something like that. Alabama, maybe something along those lines. I don't even know what the line is. What's the line, Patrick?
I think it's 6.5.
Yeah, 6.5 was last I saw. Checking one more time just to make sure that money hasn't moved here today.
It's about a touchdown. Yeah. So
right.
Yeah, I would. That's about right. So and at home, so it's basically even or close if it were a neutral field. So yeah, I think Alabama wins by a touchdown.
Absolutely. I like it. I like it a lot. And I might have to take that to
You want to bet on it?
I was going to bet on it either way. I like to listen to some handicaps of people that I really like and respect and trust in this business. And you're definitely one of them.
You better shrimp dinner when I come down to Mobile. I'm not talking about cat people, of course.
Exactly. Yeah. Scott, thank you so much for your time and your insight on both the hoops and football. Big weekend there in Tuscaloosa.
All right, guys. Have a great weekend.
Thank you so much. Scott Griffin joining us from Birmingham, Alabama, about 45 minutes away from, they call it Titletown over there, but if you're a fan of sports in Tuscaloosa, that is a place to be. That is certainly the place to be.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously not a great won last night over there in Tuscaloosa with the Purdue game. But, I mean, you got to have a short memory if you're a fan, because you got a big one here this weekend. You definitely cannot lose this one.
Absolutely. Coming up next year on Southeast Sports Plus, we head over to Jackson, Mississippi, and hang out with our friend Camden Morris. Stay with us. Back here on Southeast Sports Plus, hour number 1 continues. We head out to Jackson, Mississippi, and hanging out with Camden Morris. And there obviously is a big smile on her face, and we could tell the programs and the schools and the stations we cover that have like really good things going on and really not good things going on. So Missouri, South Carolina, some of the other teams, not necessarily so much. But for you guys and the Ole Miss Rebels, things have been on the up and up. I know that they don't play this week, but what have you made so far from this week's they played Florida this week, but what do you make so far of what you've seen this year with Ole Miss as they head into a monster matchup with a lot of narratives going into it, not necessarily on the field?
Yeah, no, I mean, Ole Miss has just been a powerhouse program. I mean, Lane Kiffin, year after year, it just seems like we see more and more of just, it's the Kiffin era. If you go to an Ole Miss game, you see his dog, you see his daughter, you see his kid. I mean, it's like the Lane Kiffin house at Ole Miss. And I think fans are really buying into that. I'm buying into it. I really like it. And, you know, he's also producing wins. So it's like people want to see a team that wins. And for the state of Mississippi, Ole Miss is that team that everybody wants to go see and they want to be a part of those wins.
One of the big things that Patrick has said is that he believes that Lane Kiffin is sticking around for a lot of reasons that are outside of football, and you alluded to a lot of those right there. From the fan perspective, what is the overall consensus about what they think Lane's future holds? Because Lane is a master at trolling and doing things on social media that makes you think one thing or another. I am leaning a lot more towards Patrick for a lot of the reasons that you said, the reasons that he is ingrained there in that culture. Florida will obviously be a team that will come calling in the next few weeks. But what is the overall general consensus from the fans there in your area in Jackson and there in Oxford?
I definitely think, and I think a lot of the fans think, Lane Kiffin's going to stay at Ole Miss, and it's kind of like, Nick Saban at Alabama. He created this kind of legacy, and Kiffin has the opportunity to do the same thing here in Oxford. And I think a lot of fans are like, he has to do this. This is the way he can create his legacy. It's not just about more money. It's not just about, creating a greater name for himself. His family's also here, his son's in high school in Oxford, playing football, quarterback. So it's all these connections that I think really make Kiffin also want to stay here besides just the football aspect.
Here's the thing, Camden. I feel like people are forgetting that Knox listed the schools that he wanted to, go play for, and Florida was one of them, and he said he didn't want to play for his dad. So I don't know if anything's changed there. Obviously, I know he's got a big football game coming up here tonight. Correct me if I'm wrong. They play tonight.
Yeah, they do.
He has the opportunity. In my opinion, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't see Ole Miss as that much worse of a job than Florida now, because we've seen how Florida is, and Ole Miss is gonna, barring some miracle collapse, gonna make the college football playoff. And if you're Florida, why would you want to hire a guy after the college football playoff? Like, I just don't see it.
No, I mean, I can see Florida wanting to hire him as the coach for coming up in the next season. I don't think it's necessarily all about the college football playoffs right now. If you're on Florida's side, they need a head coach. They need somebody who's capable of producing wins, and they want that. But I also think Florida is the kind of program that if you're not producing wins, if you're not getting in the college football playoff, if you're not making, trips to possibly win the whole SEC, they're not going to keep you around. And I think Kiffin knows that. And Ole Miss is a place where it's not just about keeping him around. Like, fans are ingrained with him and they want him there. So I think that's something that's important for him.
I think mentally a lot of us do this, the whole W's and L's. You just look down the schedule. This a W, that's a W, that's a win, that's a loss, possible win, question mark, or whatever. I think I've almost bypassed the football game, the 60 minutes that they'll play on Saturday, just thinking that Ole Miss will win. But this is a Florida team that did upset the Texas not that long ago. I know Billy Napier's over there helping out Kirby Smart. As you think about the way this game needs to play out and the way that Ole Miss needs to execute against the Gators, what comes to mind?
I don't think this is necessarily going to be the easiest win for Ole Miss. I think Coach Kiffin always looks at each game as a challenge, and that's how you should look at it, especially when you're playing, SEC teams. And, he talks about it being, one of the best conferences, in the United States, and he's right there. The competition is high, and, Florida on their side, they want to beat Ole Miss. They're not going to give it up easily, and I think it's going to be, a dogfight out there, and they're going to have to give it their all. But, a lot of people are leaning towards Ole Miss is definitely going to win. But you just never know, especially with injuries, and things can change in college football like that.
Camden, the thing that I worry about is if Florida wins this game, the narrative is going to start that Lane threw the game to miss the college football playoff. Is there any concern about that if Ole Miss were to lose this game? I believe they're a 13.5-point favorite. Okay,
yeah. I mean, I haven't thought about it like that, but, you make a good point. I hope not. I hope that doesn't happen. I'm hoping that they just win. I'm for Ole Miss. I hope they just win.
That makes two of us.
Yeah.
That makes two of us.
I don't want to see that happen. Right. I like Coach Kiffin. I want him to stay in Oxford. So I'm like, okay, if he just does all that, that'll make life easier. But, there's other points. You're right. Florida fans, they want something else.
Absolutely. DJ Lagway is the quarterback for the Florida Gators. We got a chance to hear from Kiffin on the QB1 over there in Gainesville.
Yeah, I think DJ's really what the whole team is, when I say the concerns. Extremely talented at times plays at an elite level, and it is a problem. Like, they're basically most of their position groups. Extremely talented. At times you watch film and say, man, these guys are as good as anybody in the country. And DJ's like that. So, he played great against us 1 year ago. And anytime you got somebody that's got an elite arm and really hard to tackle like him, and can run over you, that's an issue.
Let's flip it over to Mississippi State now, Camden. This is a team that came out of the gates just firing, and they only had, a couple wins last year, and already got now their SEC win. They're one game away from bowl eligibility. What do you make of what Jeff Lebby's been able to do here in year two? Got a marquee win out of conference in Arizona State, got a marquee win in the SEC. No shame in losing to Georgia, but what do you expect here of this Mississippi State program as he continues to lay bricks?
I think he really needs to, put up a good fight against Missouri, hopefully even get a win. I think that's going to be important for Mississippi State because after that, if they don't get that win, they're going up against Ole Miss, and the chances of them winning against Ole Miss, frankly, aren't that good. And so Missouri, this is kind of like their last, be-all, the last chance they can really have to leave it all on the field. They're also been dealing with injuries, so I think it really just depends on what players we can see step up and see how much depth the program really has.
As you think about what this defense will have to do against a really good offense and especially a good offensive attack, what's the key there for the Bulldogs against Ahmad Hardy and the running game? Because like you said, Missouri is a little bit banged up.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's really just going to take, getting that all-in mentality. It's going to take them having to block out the noise. They're not in Starkville, so that's also something that Mississippi State has to think about. They have to work together as a team, and there's a lot of noise, people talking about Mississippi State. Some people are saying, it's great. It's an improvement from last season. Some people, they still want more. I think Jeff Lebby still wants more. The players still want more. I know Shapen still wants more. They want to be bowl eligible, and so I think it's really about blocking out that noise and just doing what they know they can do on the football field.
Through the first few games of the season, Ahmad Hardy was like the leading rusher in the entire country. Jeff Lebby talked about their running back for the Tigers.
Yeah, both these guys are really, really good. Ahmad, the first guy, never tackles him, and that's what shows up on tape over and over and over. You try to arm tackle this guy, and it's going to be a long day. We've got to do a great job of getting hats to the football. We got to gang tackle. And that's the thing that sticks out more than anything is the first one never tackles him.
When I think about this Mississippi State team, I always think about like what's next as far as from a building perspective. What are some reasonable expectations as you spring forward to 2026? Let's just say they split it. They go 1-1. They're bowl eligible. They're 6-6 to end off the season. What are some reasonable expectations? Because I know there'll be a lot of them for Mississippi State going into 2026.
I think you kind of have to look at the recruiting standpoint. They're going to lose some really good players coming on the next year. They're going to have to look at that, trying to add depth into every single room in that field because as we see all the time, injuries happen, players are taken out in the season. So you've got to be able to have confidence in your backups. You got to be able to have confidence in your freshmen. You can't just recruit players that down the road, their junior, senior season, they're going to be ready to play. They need to be ready to play SEC football right now. And I think Mississippi State needs to focus on that.
Point of inquiry, I want to know where you guys are in the high school football season. I know there's a lot of talent in your way that goes to Mississippi State, goes to Ole Miss, goes to other schools that are surrounding the area there. What's it look like for tonight and moving forward there in the Magnolia State?
Yes, so a lot of excitement. Our game of the week tonight is Hartfield and Jackson Prep, so we have an MAI as private school matchup. These are two powerhouse programs. Hartfield Academy has won the last 2 years in the state championship, but this year Jackson Prep won earlier this season against them, so it's really going to be a back-and-forth game. One team will win, one team will go on to the state championship, and one team season will sadly end. So we're already kind of in that final rankings for the private schools, and then for the public schools right now, still in the playoffs, second round of playoffs for a lot of them, some of them first round. So they're still kind of seeing who's going to continue on, who's going to go home, but still a little farther out for those public schools.
Absolutely. You are obviously very, very busy tonight. We'll let you get back at it. Thank you so much for your time here on Southeast Sports Plus.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Cam Norris joining us from Jackson, and I think we're all kind of in the same situation here around this region where the regular season in high school has kind of died off, and now you're going towards the playoffs. And a lot of times it is your best players that are still in those playoff games and guys that we can see on Saturdays playing in the SEC.
Yeah, and I think Jackson Prep, if I'm not mistaken, does have one guy going to Auburn.
Right. That's right.
I think we talked about him earlier when he committed to the Tigers in the summer. We'll see if he still sticks with his commitment now that we don't know who's going to be the next head coach at Auburn. But I think she makes a great point talking about Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin. I mean, he is that town. I got to see it firsthand a few weeks ago.
Right.
And I mean, the town embraces him. He literally is Oxford.
Yep, he certainly is. And I agree with you and I agree with her. And I think that there's a lot of sticking points that will make it really interesting. But make no mistake, whatever Gator fans do make it to the Grove this upcoming week, they will be whispering sweet nothings in Lane Kiffin's ear the entire time. I said the same thing when Auburn went to Vanderbilt, that Auburn's looking for a coach. Right. And Lee and Clark Lee is one of the kind of top guys that are in the game right now. And I just won't be a bit surprised if there's some conversations up there in those suites about hey, can we make this work from a dollar perspective?
Yeah, but I mean, he said it a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
No amount of money goes into any of my considerations.
Yeah.
I know he said Jimmy Sexton doesn't like that, but it doesn't matter to him.
Of course he doesn't like that. But Jimmy Sexton will continue to play puppet master over the course of the next month or so as all these schools try to find their next head coaches. We appreciate Camden Morris for her time here on Southeast Sports Plus. We close up hour number 1 coming up next. Back here on Southeast Sports Plus. Yesterday we had a bracket reveal and we were projecting forward. So we take what the college football playoff said, and then we'll also do some own projections in our own head.
Right.
So it's not the way that we see the bracket as of right now. It's the way that we project the bracket.
We see it at the end of the year.
Correct. So there's a lot of fluidity that goes with it, and you kind of obviously we're playing by the same rules. It's not our rankings.
Right.
We're playing by the same rules as a college football playoff format. You had yours yesterday, and here's a look at mine, and I'll tell you some of the rationale behind it. Okay.
Whoa!
This
is the first time I'm seeing this.
Yeah, so I will start with the 5 matchup and the 8-9 matchup there in the first round. I have Ole Miss there as the number 5 seed. I have Georgia Tech as the number 12 seed. I have Texas as the number 9 seed and Texas Tech as the number 8 seed. You might be asking the reason why. I think that, in my opinion, Texas will split these next 2 games.
Okay.
They'll win 2 of the next 3 games. And I believe that Texas Tech will win out. No offense to your boys in the Mountaineers.
Yeah, that's fine.
And so I do think with the 3 losses, Texas is the only team to be able to get in with those 3 losses. Now, the seeding might throw you off a little bit, and you might be asking
That's what I was about to ask you.
Yeah, because I believe that Texas will lose to Georgia but beat Texas A&M.
Okay.
I think that helps them springboard over Utah
okay.
in that matchup. And so it'll be just the committee playing those 2 at-larges. Now, obviously, could be wrong, but I think that they'll play those 2 at-larges against one another, and I do think that the committee, like the NCAA basketball committee, they love matchups. And if they can get Texas and Texas Tech on the field together, 2 old-school Big 12 rivals, I think they'll do so. I think so they'll do it more for the narrative part as well. And then going to the other side of that bracket, you have South Florida and Georgia, and then Oregon and Utah. And in that, I do think Oregon ends up running the table. That might be a kind of a low seed for them moving into it. But I do think it's another situation where I think the committee will play more narrative than anything else and have Oregon and Utah two kind of West Coast teams against one
So
another.
you see Utah making it over BYU.
I see Utah making it over BYU.
And is that with another BYU loss?
That is okay. Yeah. So when I played this out on the predictor, because
whoa, you're cheating.
What's that?
You used a predictor?
No. I put in my.
I thought you used a analyzer and just threw it into a computer.
No, I put in like basically what I said was these teams win, these teams lose.
I thought you threw it into an analytics.
No.
Matchup.
Like the trade playoff or whatever. Yeah. No. So then I have Utah. Who did I have Utah losing to? I had Utah losing. Let me pull this back up.
You have Utah losing again.
So what's that?
You mean BYU?
Utah, and yes, sorry, BYU, okay. the other school in that state. I have BYU.
Holy war.
Yeah, exactly. I have BYU losing again. I have the Cougars losing to Central Florida at the end of the season.
Really?
Central Florida at the end of the season, and honestly,
with one win in Big 12 play?
I won't be a bit surprised if they also lose to Cincinnati.
Is that a road game?
The Cincinnati game is a road game. And
Okay.
And the Central Florida game is at home. And so my thing is that I expect BYU to have two more losses on the season. Wow. They end the season with 3 losses on the year. I think Texas Tech exposed some things on offense. Not necessarily that Cincinnati's got the best defense, but I think Cincinnati exposes a little bit more. And then once they have 2 losses, they know they're out mentally. They're checked out. Central Florida will beat them. They now have 3.
I think that's a little bit shocking because, at this point of the year when you get your first loss, it's like, okay, that's a reset for these teams.
Right.
I think you said what, fat and sassy?
Yes,
I mean,
fat and sassy.
all these teams are fat and sassy at this point. If you're entering these games 8-0, 9-0, you're thinking, oh yeah, 10 or 12-0 is pretty easy.
Right.
I think they're going to come out with a chip on their shoulder the rest of these few weeks because they got demolished.
Right.
I mean, demolished by Texas Tech. Yeah, Texas Tech didn't score the touchdowns. I believe they kicked 5 field goals and set a new program record. But still, it never seemed like BYU was truly in that game.
Right.
And I feel it's the same thing as Nate Oates said about the Purdue game. Yeah, I mean, the effort was awful. And then it's just going to be like, what are you going to do? Are you just going to sit there and lose the rest of these games and completely miss the college football playoff?
Right.
They were in this situation last year. That's the thing.
Right.
And they didn't come out on the right side of it. I just see it a little bit differently this year because last year I think they lost to Iowa State, and that's what solidified them missing the college football playoff.
That's right.
Because Iowa State then made the Big 12 championship.
Correct. Exactly. And I just do see a shakeup. And in my head, I really did not predict 3 weeks ago. I wouldn't have predicted 2 Big 12 teams getting in.
Right.
I do now and I think at the end of the season, from a narrative standpoint, I think they'll kill Baylor, Kansas State, and Kansas at the end of the season. 3 blowout wins, so that'd be 5 straight blowout wins for Utah. That's the reason why I have them in there. And I know we only have like 20 seconds here, so I'll quickly get to my top 4. Basically, not a lot of change. I do like Alabama though winning the SEC championship game.
That
bumps them up to number 2. They don't punish Texas A&M. They're number 3. Indiana is number 4. That is it. That's the playoff right there for you. Hour number 2 is next.
In our neck of the woods, sports is tradition. Sports is passion. Sports is family. Sports is fun. Welcome to our house. This is Southeast Sports Plus Live with Simone Eli and Gerhard Mathangani.
Well, here's the deal. I don't know about all. I know we got a chance this week to play for a rock and play for the seniors. And there's always something to play for. I talked about this in the SEC Media Days, okay? We got to get out of this. Oh, man, it's playoffs or bust. Yes, again, we're shooting for the moon. We're going to put our whole self into that. But only 12 teams make the playoffs, and we put ourselves in position in November to be there, okay? Didn't get it done. I got that. But if the season only counts for 12 football teams, and we got 127 Division I playing football teams, that math's not going to math very well. That math's not going to math very well, okay? Football is more than just the playoff potential. And, again, we were there. We were there. We didn't get it done.
Drink is talking again. At the beginning of the season at SEC Media Days, he said he wants a 30-team playoff. He did all the math about it, and now his team, obviously outside of the college football playoff talk because of what has happened with not only in the win-loss column, but also what has happened with his two starting quarterbacks going into the season, both Sam Horn and Bo Perbula, now all out. Coach Drinkwitz, if you're looking at it from a holistic standpoint, if you're looking at it from a philosophical standpoint, I get exactly what he's saying.
Right.
I understand exactly what he's saying. But yeah, kind of. It kind of does come down to the last 12 teams. And the season, not that the season matters for 12 teams, not really at all. College football is still developmental. But in my opinion, he's arguing a point that what he argued for 30 teams, what he argued was more teams getting to have the fun.
The percentage.
Correct. Have the fun, have the excitement. So the 12 teams that do get in have the fun and have the excitement, and the ones that aren't are left a little bit, saddened by it. But I do understand why you put all your eggs in that playoff basket. And Nick Saban said this, like when the playoff first started, he's like, we're going to water down the bowl games. And we have watered down those bowl games.
Yeah, and honestly, what I'm thinking of it, what I see from what he just said was that he's linked to these job openings. Mm-hmm. I don't know if he's truly a contender or not. Right. I think he's usually, from what I've seen on the sports books, he's usually the third or the fourth highest odds.
Right.
This just takes him out of the Auburn job, the Florida job definitely, the LSU job definitely, because, I mean, that's what these fan bases want.
Yeah, right.
So that just honestly tells me, hey, Eli, you're great for Mizzou.
Yeah.
Because Mizzou will never fire him as long as they're somewhat competitive.
Right. And they're putting money into it because remember the storyline at the beginning of the season was they're putting more than $250 million into athletics. And so
and that stadium, which is a ghost town, I mean, honestly.
Right.
If I were playing at Mizzou, I would. They're doing the construction in the one end zone. I would just say, hey, I'm going to pick which way I'm going to go. I'm going to go that way the second and the fourth quarter.
Right.
Because then you don't even have to deal with the fans.
Correct.
I mean, you could pretty much make it a home game because all the noise is going to be behind you. There's going to be no noise in front of you.
Exactly. And I'm sure that all their opponents have thought of it that way. They're thinking, hey, you know what, we can get it a competitive advantage here by literally going into the ghost town there in that end zone. So we've talked about this with Lane, and we'll talk about it with Drink here as well. He's obviously looking to temper expectations. The mentality of the college football playoff or bust is what he's kind of attacking here. Do you think that all of this, this whole thing is a cloud for him to say, this is the reason why I am staying here, because he feels like they can make the college football playoff and everything else moving forward. Do you think that this is basically like, just putting the ripples out there early on?
I think so. I don't see Eli leaving Columbia. I really think he fits that program well.
Right.
He's really started to improve the program in recent years. But, I mean, the statement him and Lane would make by staying at their programs
absolutely
would have a ripple effect for arguably the next 10 years at least. I mean, LSU, Florida thinking, hey, I mean, we've got our guys in the bag. We've got them right now.
Yeah.
LSU, for some reason, Vegas thinks they're getting Nick Saban, which I think is blasphemy.
Yeah.
Again, do not bet on that. You're just going to be giving Vegas more money that Vegas does not need right now.
Right.
And then Florida fans are like, yeah, we're going to lose this weekend, and then we're going to take your coach.
Right.
And it's over. It's already done. In their eyes, it's already done.
Yeah.
But the statement these two coaches would make, if they're like, I don't care if you're going to give me more money. I have infinite job security here.
Right.
I don't want to deal with fans. I mean, I think I brought up Ryan Day last year.
Yes.
After the Michigan game.
Yeah.
He had to hire a security guard around his house 24/7 because they lost, and the fans were that mad about it.
Yep. And then about a month and a half later,
I mean, we were talking about, hey, Ryan Day's going to get fired probably because he can't beat Michigan ahead of the college football playoff. And then what does he do? He wins 4 straight.
Yep, it wins it 4 straight, wins a college football playoff and a national championship, and then now he's minted there. I saw him playing in a golf tournament a little while back, a little while after that. It's like, and everybody's cheering him, and they have the Ohio State stuff on, and it's like fans have these fickle memories. And so I'm with you. I think that if you could do it there, then if you feel like you could do it where you are, then there's no reason to leave. And I think if you're Missouri, literally all you have to do is look at Kirk Cinetti.
Yes.
And there is nothing, in my opinion, that Indiana can accomplish that Missouri can't.
No.
And to me, they're not necessarily equal programs, but as far as like their pedigree, they're in the pecking order of college football. When you think of the powers, you think of Alabama, Oklahoma, Florida, LSU, Notre Dame, and a few others. That second wave of teams would be teams like Indiana and teams like Missouri and teams like Kansas and Texas Tech and some of these other squads that, in my opinion, if you're looking at your job, you could look at Kirk Cinetti and say, hey, why not? We could be literally the number 2 team in the country, square in the hunt for a first-round bye in a college football playoff bid.
You're still in the SEC.
Yes.
It's not like you're in the ACC and you're a bottom feeder in the ACC.
Right.
Yeah, this year hasn't gone to plan. The last 2 years really haven't gone to plan.
Right.
I mean, you started off strong, but it feels like Eli is kind of taking after James Franklin. He just can't really win the big games.
Big ones, right.
But still, Mizzou's not going to really care. I mean, they're still competitive. They're going to make a bowl game pretty much every year.
Right.
And they're going to produce NFL talent. We just saw it with Luther Burden last year.
Yeah.
But the only thing that kind of concerns me a little bit about the two coaches that we've been talking about is they haven't signed extensions yet.
Yes.
And I feel like at this point of the year, we saw it with Kurt Cignetti. We saw it with Matt Rule. We saw it with Rhett Lashley.
Right.
But the only thing I'm holding on to about Lane Kiffin is that he's like, I've never had money talk in the middle of a season. I've never signed an extension in the middle of the season.
And maybe as like a philosophy thing like that, like they just do not want to start talking dollars and cents. They'll play that contract out. And also too, there might be Jimmy Sexton saying, hey, look, for every day that you
tell you what, he's going to make some money.
Yeah, he is. That commission check's going to be fat. And the thing is that
From all of these guys.
Right. He might be thinking, hey, it's a leverage play. You don't sign an extension yet, and we can add more. Who knows what the value of that extension might be 6 weeks from now,
right,
as compared to right now. And so it will be really interesting. Of course, this is a really interesting week for Missouri because they play a Mississippi State team that's riding high. And I know they just lost, by a lot to Georgia, but it's a team right before that got their first win at Arkansas, first SEC win, I should say, under head coach Jeff Lebby after going 0 for the SEC last year. Started off really hot this year. This is a tricky game to me if you're Missouri because I know that there's reasons to be down in the dumps about this, but you really can't be because Mississippi State's coming into town and they want blood.
Yeah, and the only thing I think plays into Missouri's favor is that this is a home game and it's senior day for the seniors. I mean, we've seen the difference in play for Mississippi State when it comes to a home game and an away game is night and day. I mean, They almost knocked off Tennessee, almost knocked off Texas. Last week was a little bit of a dud. The Arizona State win at home was huge. It's tough to play there with the Cowbells, but on the road, it's just not the same team. And another thing for Mississippi State is we don't know about Blake Shapen. He left last week's game with an injury. He's still uncertain to play this game, and that's going to be a major problem for Mississippi State if he can't go.
Right, that's exactly right. And both teams are going to backup quarterbacks. And this feels like the NFL when it becomes a game of matriculation, and you just have a game of attrition, I should say, and you just are just trying to hold on because you mentioned Blake Shapen. Then of course from Missouri, both Sam Horn goes. I don't know if he went under the knife or not. I don't know if he had to have surgery. But then Bo Perbula gets injured as well. They turn to the freshman in Zollers. We got a chance to hear from Coach Drink about his QB1, the true freshman.
Yeah, for us, it's about getting him comfortable earlier in the game and creating some easier opportunities for him to get into a rhythm. We never really got him into the rhythm offensively, and so we've got to do a better job of creating some offensive rhythm and not putting him in, situations where he feels the entire pressure to make the play. So that's something that we can do. Obviously, I think, Matt didn't play his senior year because of an injury. The game against UCA and ULL was, the first times he's really played, and then Vanderbilt. So I knew there was going to be some things that we got to continue to work on. I think his confidence in yesterday's walkthrough was better. I think his confidence in practice will be better. And now we've got building blocks on what we can build upon. And so, but it's not, it's unfair to expect Matt to carry the load. I've got to do my job of carrying the load for Matt. Our staff's got to do their job. And then our whole team's got to continue to do their job.
I think it's the right way to handle somebody who is a true freshman. And as you heard, and if you did not know, and I did not know, that Zollers did not play as a senior in high school because of an injury. So he's basically going on the better part of the last 2 football seasons with not a lot of football being played. And you saw that when he was overwhelmed last week against the Aggies.
Yeah, and have fun because you're playing in the SEC.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Your first football action in 24 months is against SEC opponents, and your first start is against Texas A&M, who's undefeated and is more than likely going to have a first-round bye in the college football playoff. So, it was just it wasn't really set up for success. Obviously, you welcome in Mississippi State. Jeff Lebby looking for his second SEC win in his second season, both this season. But, Mississippi State does have a lot to play for.
Yeah.
And Missouri at this point, just try to make a bowl game. Honestly, if you make a bowl game with your third-string quarterback with how this season has gone, that's a win in my book.
Yeah, absolutely. And went back to look because I think both these teams, Missouri's already bowl eligible. They're now looking to get a bigger bowl. Go into a bigger bowl, so to speak. And Mississippi State sitting at 5 wins, they're wanting to play for a bowl game. And with Ole Miss at the end of the season, you go in thinking any given Saturday, but you have to think that you have to win this game if you're going to keep your season alive and play that one extra bowl game. In my opinion, this is different from LSU because to me, teams like LSU, teams I'm trying to think of another team that have really high expectations. The bowl game for them means almost nothing.
Right.
Teams like Missouri, Mississippi State, bowl games to them mean a lot, I would think.
Yeah, and if we look at the schedule to end the year, I think if you win the Mississippi State game, I don't think you win the Oklahoma game, but if you can beat Arkansas as well and then win a bowl game, finish winning 3 of your last 4, build some momentum heading into next year. If Matt Zollers can play well, he could make a run at. I don't know if Bo Perbula is going to come back. I think if he has eligibility, he should.
Right.
Because in my opinion, I said this before the year, I think Bo was a better quarterback than Sam Horn.
Yes,
it happened. It was unfortunate for Sam because it wasn't truly a quarterback battle. But I think he could make a serious run at Bo Perbula for the starting job. And, I think the talent is there. We saw it a little bit against Vanderbilt.
Right.
It's just you got to build the momentum and build the confidence playing against SEC opponents.
That's exactly right. And so we'll see how that one shakes out as Missouri and Mississippi State play a very interesting game for both teams coming in. Of course, Both teams coming in a little bit hobbled at the QB1 situation. We'll see what the offenses look like on Saturday. Coming up next here on Southeast Sports Plus, we have it over to Waco, Texas, and checking with our boy Parker Reed. Back here on Southeast Sports Plus, hour number 2 rolls on, and we will go over to Waco and check in with Parker Ream right now. And this is a team that I feel like none of us have been able to get our hands on, except for Parker. He's been telling us the whole time, "Hey man, this team is really, really good."
Gotta believe.
And Mike Elko was telling the Houston quarterback club. He was telling Patrick Walsh. He was telling everybody, "Hey, believe in us, believe in us, believe in us." And I think everybody now has, still with a 0 in the loss column. Yeah, South Carolina this week. I would think that stays the same come some Saturday night into Sunday. Mm-hmm. Now 9-0. Now that we've seen a couple of the college football playoff committee rankings, it just feels like this team is not necessarily buying into their own hype. They're not necessarily doing all the things that we think happen. Like we saw, for example, Indiana the other day, barely squeaked by Penn State. Not necessarily in that number 2 spot, made them do so, but it just is really interesting to see how teams handle success. And it feels like this team is handling success. Just big picture, what's your takeaway as they go into game number 10?
Yeah, I don't know if you guys are big Ted Lasso fans, but it's sort of that belief. Yeah, it's sort of that belief in the locker room, right? You hit that after everything. But also, to go along with Ted Lasso, it's the hope that kills you, right? Yeah. I think that kind of is what Texas A&M fans are really cautious about right now, is they have a lot of hope. This is the best start in 3 decades for Texas A&M football. But obviously, it's that South Carolina game last year that really sent this Aggie football team into a spiral. And they lose all but one game against, I believe it was New Mexico State last year. Mm-hmm. So they lose every game after that. And this South Carolina upset when they were number 10 in the country with SEC championship virtually on lock. If they could just get a win in Columbia, they definitely are looking for revenge right now. I think that hope that they can get over that hump that is South Carolina could be what kills them, but it also could be what propels them to an SEC championship.
Absolutely. As you digest what happened in this past week against Missouri, obviously going with their backup quarterback in that matchup, it felt like a team that was still a team that was on a mission, so to speak, and not necessarily taking their foot off the gas pedal. As you break down that matchup and now going into South Carolina with a very mobile quarterback and a guy that has played a lot of college football, how do you break down what that defense will need to do come Saturday?
I think the defense has played really well, and I think they did very well against Missouri and forcing a young quarterback to make those mistakes and really just kind of put pressure on him. I think the defensive line for Texas A&M has been really good, and that's something you saw on Saturday. But can they do that against an experienced quarterback in Lenora Sellers? And they've seen a couple of mobile quarterbacks early on this season. They've seen Jackson Arnold and really held him to a below-average rushing game, forcing him to throw the ball. I think that's what they're going to have to do against Lenora Sellers. But obviously, Sellers, a decent passer as well. He's not just a runner. So just containing him, I think, should be the game plan for this defense. And if they can, I think the Aggies have a good chance of staying undefeated.
Absolutely. And then you mentioned how this game caused a bit of a skid last year. I feel like this year it's almost kind of worked the opposite, that they've taken everything in the old Nick Saban rat poison thing that came to mind, and they're just taking it and saying, okay, you think that we would be, we would take this to mind, but we don't necessarily do so. As this coaching staff, progresses throughout the course here of the regular season, what are some of the ways from an X's and O standpoint? Because I do think that they'll be favored in every matchup, probably by a good margin, at least in these first two before that Texas game. What do you think that their message is to their football team as they inch closer to the playoff, knowing, everything that's at stake, being able to get that first round bye?
I think the biggest message that Mike Elko's been saying each week is we are the better team, and you guys have to believe that. And if you play the way you're supposed to, there's nobody that can contend with this team. And I think that's something that, the first half against LSU, Texas A&M trailing that game, they go into the halftime break, and we actually saw a clip of Mike Elko saying, we are the better team, but we're not playing like it. And if you don't play like it, they're going to run away with this game. And then Texas A&M comes out and blows out the Tigers in Death Valley, gets the coach fired. I think that's something that they've been preaching over and over again is if you play to your potential, the potential is a national championship. And they just can't take their foot off the gas. And I think that's something they are definitely not overlooking this South Carolina game. Sanford, even Kirk Herbstreit didn't know what team they were. So I think you could probably chalk that one up as a win, although they did just fire their coach. Sad to see Chris Hatcher leave over there. But, I think realistically, if they get past South Carolina, this SEC title race, that clinches it for the Aggies pretty much. So this is a huge game going down in Kyle Field. Sad to say that it's an 11 a.m. kickoff, so I'm going to have to get up bright and early tomorrow.
Exactly. Lane Kiffin, earlier this week, or maybe the end of last week, I think it was earlier this week, made a strong case, and he was saying that Texas A&M should be the #1 team in the country, laid out his reasons why. I know a lot of people are writing that same take. I know if I'm going to ask Coach Elko, he's going to give the regular coach speak, but from your perspective, do you think that this is the #1 football team in the country?
Yeah, I think, but then you look at the College Football Playoff Committee, which now looks a heck of a lot different, being in Waco with Mack Rhodes departing as athletic director and College Football Playoff chairman. So I think some Texas A&M fans I saw on Twitter were taking to Twitter and saying, "Good, he's gone. Now our biggest hater is off the board." But I don't know that necessarily had anything to do with it. I think Texas A&M, their resume stacks up very well, and I think something they look at towards the end of the season, whether they like to admit it or not, is eye test. And in every single one of these games, Texas A&M has given you something different in terms of the eye test of how they can win football games. And at the end of the day, that's what matters. And I don't think any of these have really been particularly close, whether it's from a statistical standpoint or from that end score when the clock hits triple zeros. So I think that's something that they should probably take into consideration at the end of the season. But you look at Ohio State and Indiana's resumes too, they have some quality wins. Indiana against Oregon on the road. I mean, that
Right.
you gotta think about that in terms of that. But you also look at Notre Dame too. That was a huge win in South Bend.
Right.
But
For
I guess
sure.
a lot of people look at that as, oh, they barely escaped
Right.
from that game. But anytime you put up 40 plus points and come away with a win against a top 10 team on the road, I think you can't really just discard that. So I think A&M's resume stacks up well. Whether the committee thinks that's enough to put them over two Big Ten teams, we'll have to wait and see.
Absolutely. We'll get into more of the Mac Rose stuff in just a moment. But first, going back to this football game this weekend, we got a chance to hear from head coach Mike Elko about the new signal caller, new play caller, I should say, for South Carolina after Mike Shula was fired last week.
Yeah, it's really challenging. It's really a blank slate that they've had, a week to look at our defense, a week to formulate a plan based off of everything they've learned about our defense. You would assume that they're going to have a really, really strong plan coming into the game. You don't imagine they can change too much because obviously it's a little bit like we talked about with Missouri with the quarterback. 11 kids have been running a certain system, so they're certainly not going to completely change the entire system. But, wrinkles, tweaks, different things, motions, formations, stress points, you can change a lot in 2 weeks. And so I'm sure it'll be a little bit of a whirlwind in the beginning of the game trying to figure out where it's going and what direction it's heading. And, obviously important to try to find ways to kind of stem that tide a little bit.
I think it's an interesting kind of puzzle piece you have to put together from a defensive standpoint, from a game plan standpoint. I harken back to something I saw last week in the playoffs here in our area. It was a rematch of a first-round playoff game from a year ago. It was one of the teams that was number one ranked in the country, or one in the state in Saraland, and they were playing a team that they looked like they were playing with nothing to lose. Going for it almost every fourth down, trick plays everywhere. Do you expect some of that from South Carolina this upcoming week and just some challenges they might present on offense?
I think just to pull the upset, yeah. And that's just something that those teams that aren't in the top 25, I mean, I'm not sure South Carolina's record, looking it up right now, 3-6. 1-6 in the SEC isn't going to cut it in terms of just playing it safe.
Right.
And especially at Kyle Field in front of all those Aggie fans, I think they're going to have to do something to silence the crowd. And whether you see some trick plays, maybe a new type of energy is something that I'm expecting. But ultimately, we won't know until 11 a.m. on Saturday.
Absolutely. Let's turn over to Baylor really quickly. Obviously, it made headlines this past Thursday or Wednesday or Thursday that Mac Rhodes, the AD, was stepping down not only from his role there at Baylor, but of course with the college football playoff committee as the chair. What have you made so far since that news has come down? I know they called it for personal reasons, and maybe the ripple-on effect, the domino effect from both the committee and Baylor.
Yeah, I think you've already seen the committee be pretty swift to fill his role. I think right now we don't really know what the sole cause of it is. Baylor did tell us that as a university, he is under internal investigation after a complaint, but that's not related to Title IX. It's not related to NCAA rules violations or even related to the football team, which there was an investigation into his conduct with star tight end Michael Trigg earlier in the year in that Arizona State game, which Baylor lost at home. But they closed that case and then reopened a new investigation. And when they did, he went on leave for personal reasons. So I think a lot of details have still yet to emerge. But as it stands right now, not a great look for Baylor. I think they're currently in the middle of a football coach that's on the hot seat and has been for some time now. And it just seems like Baylor fans can't catch a break in terms of Baylor athletics, where there's just not something weird, I guess you could say would be the best adjective to describe the athletic department right now. So we'll just see kind of what happens with that disarray, but still don't know too much, I guess, concrete details about why his absence is what it is.
Right. Obviously, with every AD, their main job is to hire coaches, and especially when the football program is not doing as well, are there growing concerns about Dave Aranda's future there with Baylor?
Well, I think that's something we definitely have to keep an eye on, and that's something that'll add to my workload if that materializes. If he gets let go, if Mac Rhodes gets let go, I think the concern for his future relies with Mac. I think Mac's been a big supporter of Dave Aranda and always thought that he does have the tools of what can be a successful football coach, and whether that ties back to the Big 12 championship in 2021 or not. I think Mac's always defended Dave Aranda. So if you don't have that athletic director coming to your defense and you're not putting up the results that are indicative of what a winning football program in the Big 12 would look like, I think if I were Dave Aranda, I would be concerned. So I think that definitely calls into question how hot that seat is becoming and how much hotter it has become since Mac Rhodes isn't part of the athletic department anymore.
Absolutely. For your sake, just to be able to not have to overwork you as much, I hope they keep him for at least a little while until you're able to get some help.
Fingers crossed. Yeah.
You're able to get some help there. Parker, thank you so much. I know there's a lot going on from high school to college. You're following a great football team. You're following another one that's got some issues. I know you have a really busy time, and I appreciate your time here.
Yeah, of course. Always make time for you guys.
Absolutely. Parker Ream joining us from Waco, Texas. And there is a lot going on, both on and off the field for him. And a lot of interesting stuff going on in basketball as well. Bucky McMillan taking over there.
Yeah, you talked about Kirk Herbstreit not knowing where Sanford was.
Yeah.
Well, you know, Texas A&M fans, you better know where Sanford is because you just took Sanford's old head coach and Bucky McMillan over and coach your basketball team. But tough one there the other night against Oklahoma State. I believe they lost by double digits.
Yep. And we'll see if Bucky Ball is able to be, integrated in the SEC. It'll probably take a little bit of time there.
Yeah, you gotta give it a minute.
Oh, for sure.
It'll work itself out.
I saw that thing come out in high school, and it did not look good early on. And the next thing you know, he's got 5 state championships. So if you're an Aggie basketball fan, just hang tight there with Bucky Ball. Coming up next here on Southeast Sports Plus, we head over to the Lone Star State. Check in with Noah Gross next. Back here on Southeast Sports Plus, hour number 2 rolling on here. We're looking forward to a lot of big games in and around the SEC. I think the marquee game, and I think maybe College Game Day might have struck out on this one, is Texas and Georgia between the hedges over there in Athens. So we're happy to be joined by our good friend Noah Gross.
I just remembered something. We were supposed to wear turtlenecks this week.
Oh, that's right. I don't even have it. I don't have a turtleneck.
You made a deal. Yeah, you made a deal with us. We were supposed to wear turtlenecks.
That's right.
Oh, we messed it up. Next week.
Either that or the A&M week.
I thought it was like a Terps thing that you were wearing the turtleneck. I was like, oh, that's sweet. They were going to do that, but I forgot that you guys were making fun of my mock turtleneck last time I was on. And that was rude.
Was that Simone that started that?
Yeah, but you guys jumped in quick. I'm not letting you guys off the hook.
I didn't. I thought it was a good look.
I was behind the camera.
I think it's a good look. I think it's a good look. We'll run the tape back. I thought it was a good look. It's
run the tape back.
It's the full turtleneck that I was like, but you didn't have that on. I thought it was. I thought it was a good look. I'll run that tape back. We'll find out.
Short sleeves. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Gerhard.
Absolutely, man. Obviously, Texas this upcoming week they got a really big game there against Georgia. Coach Sarkisian always says the right things when it comes to these marquee games. However, when you break down his career in some of these big games, especially against these Bulldogs, the numbers on the paper, the hard concrete numbers, don't look all that great. For this year's Texas team going on the road, and you've mentioned it, they've been a good road team under Sark. What are your overall expectations for this team as they look for a huge win and keeping their playoff hopes alive?
Let's kind of look at both sides of it here. I've talked to people that cover this Texas program that think Georgia might be in the Longhorns' head a little bit, which in today's college football world where there's so much turnover every year, and I feel like maybe not as many like guys that like live and die with their own program, it's kind of hard to have a program that's maybe in your head. But I mean, last year Texas, the way they played against Georgia and then everybody else was different. And I think on the other side of that, a positive thing for Texas is last year against Georgia, guys, this is the stat that's blown my mind. They played Georgia twice last year in the regular season in Austin. Game day was here, and it was rocking. I mean, everyone was in town. KD, one of my favorite artists, was in town as well. That like nobody. I don't know if you guys have heard of the rapper Corday.
Oh like, yeah. I know Corday.
Yeah. Okay, this is a very quick aside, but like Corday was here last year, and like they were showing all the celebrities on the camera in Austin. And they showed KD and everyone went crazy. I think like Quavo was here, McConaughey, and they showed Corday and like nobody cared. And I was upset. And you're like not supposed to cheer as a media member, but like I threw in some claps because I felt bad. And I actually went and talked to him. Very cool guy. So I was one of the few that actually appreciated Corday being there. But as I was saying, my actual point, the 2 times Georgia beat Texas last year, they had 13 sacks, Georgia did, against Texas in those 2 games. Pretty remarkable considering this year Georgia has 11 total. So they had more last year in those 2 games than they did in this entire season so far. So the pass rush for Georgia is maybe not what it was a season ago. And that's huge for a Texas offensive line that has struggled this year. Last year, it was like no question about it. That was their strength, and Georgia still dominated them. This year, if the Texas offensive line this year was facing Georgia last year, it would have been extremely dicey. But I have some pretty strong confidence for Texas in this game because Arch Manning's been playing so much better, and the offensive line's been getting better, and they're not facing that same Georgia team from last season, Gerhard.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And you teed up my next question perfectly because I think that if there's one quarterback that can eat in this game, it is Arch for a couple of reasons. You mentioned the lack of the pass rush. They're dead last in the SEC in sacks overall. And the way that Arch is playing, do you expect that narrative to continue this upcoming weekend where he's throwing for more than 300 yards, he's throwing for touchdowns, the ball is moving down the field? Or do you think that Billy Napier and Kirby Smart over there in Athens can scheme something up to get Arch off his game?
Yeah, Billy Napier did have some success when he was coaching a different SEC team against Texas this year. But I'm pretty confident in Arch. Not only has he played better, but I think within that, the coaching staff has much more confidence in him. You can hear it in how they talk about him, but also the way they open up the playbook more. There was a couple of those like classic Sark plays last time Texas did it against Vanderbilt. They had like a triple reverse early on in the game where they were able to find Ryan Niblett after that. So I think now that he's gotten more comfortable in the offense and he looks like a totally different guy, the way they're running the offense is different as well. So if he has time to throw, he's been really good. And he's also been somebody that when there's pressure in his face, he might have struggled early in the season, but like, he's thrown some of his best passes this year have been when he's like about to get rocked by a linebacker.
Right.
He had one of those against Florida where he stepped up as well. So I have confidence in the Texas offense. I don't want to say more than the defense because it's a team that's anchored by their defensive unit right now. But yeah, I think that unit can certainly put up some points against this Georgia team.
Noah, I feel like some fans might be like, okay, the last time Texas had an open week, they came out and they laid an egg against Florida and did not get out to a fast start. It felt like they were playing from behind. This Georgia team, what they like to do is they like to keep this game close until the fourth quarter, and that's when you start to see Georgia start to pull away. Is there any concern about the long layoff? And for Arch, I know he was coming off the concussion. Do you think that might help or hurt the hot streak that he's on right now?
Well, I don't think that would be a major part because the concussion was against Mississippi State, and then he came back for the Vanderbilt game where he played outstanding. I would say for the team, Patrick, they played awful against Florida. Like I talked to some former players were like, that was the most disappointed I've been watching Texas in a long time. With that being said, it was kind of interesting listening to the team after that Florida game where they were like, yeah, now we know we have to take everybody seriously, which I'm like, you didn't know that before? Like, this isn't San Jose State, man. So, not that they, thought Florida was going to be a cakewalk or anything, but I think Georgia certainly has their attention. And it's easy to play the narrative game when you're, covering or watching college football. Like, oh, this team has momentum right now. Or like, it's going to be a letdown week here. Texas has kind of followed that script this season a lot of the time where, like, they're coming off a game where, like, the offense really struggled. But they won. It's like, oh, then the offense played outstanding the next game. Or like, oh, this is maybe a letdown game. It's going to be a letdown game. So Texas has really done that. There's been too many surprises this year other than that Florida one, which was a major letdown. So I think Georgia obviously has their attention. And Texas also is very healthy now. They're maybe the healthiest team in the SEC. They have the guys back in the defensive back room. So we did our score predictions for this game for our pregame show. I don't know how much overlap there is between these viewers and our pregame show viewers, but like I am picking Texas and a low-scoring game as well. Okay. That I think Texas will really handle much of it, and Georgia will make a run, as you guys were saying, that they kind of do that in the fourth quarter. But I think Texas is kind of all in on this final stretch here, where it's Georgia, and then maybe I don't want to call it like a mini bye week in Arkansas, but that's not the same level as Georgia and A&M on either side.
So Noah, let me pose this question then, since we're looking forward to the final stretch of the season. First, I'll start with this question: do you see a 3-loss Texas team making the college football playoff?
Well, I would just like to say, maybe like 4 or 5 weeks ago. I think it was maybe before or after the OU game, Texas played OU. I brought this up, and I'm like, the question is if Texas could lose another game and could they make the playoff with 3 losses? And I think it was Simone came after me and was talking about how crazy that would be. That no way Texas. Yeah. So
she's also making fun of that hard stretch.
Yeah. So I just want to say it's not crazy anymore, is it? Especially, I mean, this is kind of, I think if you look at the playoff, since it's expanded last year and then this year as well, we don't know exactly what it's going to look like this year, but I think it's not going to be the 12 best teams. It's going to be, maybe like 9 or 10 best teams and like the other 2 teams that like have to be in from the ACC or Group of 5. I don't think there's any doubt that Texas is one of the top 12 teams in the country. Probably we're going to think that after the end of the season, but them actually getting in, I would say if they have a close loss this week and then beat A&M and beat Arkansas, I would bet that they're going to get in. If they have one loss and it's not that close and they don't look that good, then it's a different story. Or, it matters so much in the sport when you lose.
Yes.
If they lose the last week of the regular season, that's going to be the last thing everyone sees about the team, assuming they don't make the SEC championship. So, not that they're like, let's go out here and lose this Saturday, but I think that would be like the better loss for Texas than losing at home to A&M.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I said the same thing. I think we were talking about it on Monday. I said that if they can go out there, a close loss to Georgia and then a win over Texas A&M, I think it'll change a few of those members of the committee's minds a little bit about the perception of this team, especially if Texas A&M continues to win out. I'll ask about the defense here in just a moment, but first, we hear from Sark about the offensive line going into this Georgia game.
Yeah, no, I think that I think continued growth. I think individual growth and development is important for all those guys up front. continuity growth, I think, is important, of the communication and working together is an important factor of that. Confidence is an important factor in that. So all those things, I think, play into the continued growth and development leading into this game. Georgia has really good players. All right. So I know a lot of times we want to stare at stats, and that's like the most important thing, especially in y'all's world. We watch the tape. Okay. They got really good players, and those 3 linebackers can all rush, and they're all really good players. They have 9 sacks between them. But they got really big interior players who are very athletic. I think that Georgia does a fantastic job of what we would refer to as cage rushing, and they don't give quarterbacks a lot of opportunities to escape the pocket, and the pocket just kind of shrinks on the quarterback, and they make it difficult to make those throws. And so there's a lot of different ways to skin a cat to try to get to a quarterback. Georgia's way is a high-level way of doing that. And they're very good at it. And I know we want to look at sack numbers, but their ability to affect the quarterback, I think they do it at an extremely high level.
So I want to touch on the Texas defense going into this one against Gunnar Stockton, branching the offense for Georgia. What are some of the key points for this team as they're, number one, getting healthy, but then also, number 2, playing at a really high level?
The last time Texas was on the field, they looked great in the first half against Vanderbilt, but that defense got shredded in the second half against Diego Pavia and company. And it wasn't just like, Pavia was making some Pavia plays. Like, they had some coverage breakdowns, and then Pavia did make some Pavia plays as well in this game where it was like a 4th and 26, and he's just like Manzelling it and, just like crazy ad-libbing. But at the same time, like, the way that defense played in that game in the second half was bad, and maybe the worst they've played. The previous week against Mississippi State was not great as well. So I think where that defense is a much bigger question mark than a lot of people have imagined in this one. And I think there's little doubt in this game, gentlemen, that it's going to be within 1 possession with like 6 minutes left. And it's just about closing. And the Texas defense has been pretty good at closing this year. At Vanderbilt, they couldn't get a late stop, but the game was still like 2 scores at that point and needed to be an onside kick. In Mississippi State, when it went to overtime and Texas scored first, the Longhorns defense was able to close. They did the same thing against Kentucky. They shut down Oklahoma before that in the second half. So when they really have needed a stop against Ohio State, they kept the team in that game the whole time. It's just the offense that couldn't do anything. So yeah, Georgia might get things going early, but I would have decent confidence in this Texas defensive unit. Like we said, they got Michael Taft back, Jelani McDonald in the defensive back room, that when it matters most, they can kind of hunker down and get the job done.
Absolutely. I'll ask this with the knowing the risks that are involved, that you might just run out on this conversation. But a lot of things have happened since September the 20th. The government was open, shut down, and then reopened. You had Elon Musk, who was a billionaire who's now turned into a trillionaire. And the last time your Maryland Terrapins won a game was on September 20th. Can they finally get a win here on the board this week? You've been sour on your Terrapins for so long. Are you still?
And was I wrong? I mean,
not at all. Not at all.
Yeah. I've been saying for weeks, here's a bit of a story I think you guys will enjoy. So, I'm not even talking about the football program. What a disgrace. What a disgrace they are to everything that's represented good in this world. The basketball team, the women's basketball team is great. The men's basketball team was playing this weekend, and it was my best friend from home's wedding. And it was the wedding was Saturday. The dinner before was Friday night. I was actually off this weekend. Thank you, Texas, for having a bye week. And at the rehearsal dinner Friday, I'm mingling. It's like I know his whole family and everything. It's at this restaurant bar downtown in Austin. And I'm like, okay, they got a TV in here. And at 5 o'clock, the dinner started. And at 5 o'clock, Maryland versus Georgetown men's basketball started. And all my friends are going to the game. So I get in, I see they had the TV on ESPN. And I talk to the bartender. I order my first drink. And I say, hey, you guys able to change the game to Fox Sports 1? He said, no problem. I said, that was a horrific decision by you. It's going to ruin your night. But all right. So they put the game on Fox Sports 1. Maryland plays unbelievably bad. Unbelievably bad. It ruins my night. I'm giving a speech. This is my best friend's from growing up. And I literally opened the speech by being like, sorry if I'm in a bad mood. Maryland basketball is choking against Georgetown. It didn't land at all. Everybody was like, who is this guy? What is he talking about? So put a very sour note on my weekend.
No,
so
respect though. Respect the dedication, honestly.
Honestly, exactly. No, and I am glad that, you know what, you just you laid it all out there to the wedding party. You're like, hey, look, you know, typically I'd be in good spirits, but I can't right now because Maryland basketball. And the thing is that Maryland basketball was supposed to be the lifeboat for what the football program is doing. You got a 5-game losing streak. You haven't won in over a month, and the next thing you know, your basketball team's letting you down. I do feel basketball is going to have a really good year. No, overall.
No, I mean, zero shot. They have no offensive threat. I've never seen the two of you play basketball, but I think the offense would run through either of you. I mean, they have 5 guys on the team on the court at every moment that love to play defense. But when they get on the offensive side of the floor, it's like, oh, you're supposed to get the ball in the basket. It's just like it's like a foreign concept to them. Just the off. I mean, and I feel for Buzz Williams. You know how it is when you get a new coach, especially in today's world. It's like so hard to build a roster. They have 0 new players. But, yeah, they just have no offensive identity. And, you know, it's a long season, but I can't imagine it's going to be a fun one, guys.
I never thought that I would go into a season rooting for a team that I cared nothing about at the beginning of the year. I am rooting for Maryland this week against Illinois. I'm rooting for the Hoops team, for nobody else but for you and your speeches moving forward because, you know, everybody needs to feel the joy whenever you're happy, man.
Dude, it's better content when they lose because I get much more angry. Like,
true. You know what? That's very true. That is very true.
Yeah.
Get your rants.
So you will be let down, my friend, if you're rooting for them.
Absolutely. Noah, thank you so much for your time, man. I know it's a busy time for you. Hope you run into some more rap stars, run into KD, and get a win in hoops.
All right. Thanks, gentlemen. Have a good week.
Sounds good. Noah Gross joining us from Austin, Texas. We close up shop here on a Friday. Southeast Sports Plus. Back here on Southeast Sports Plus, Gerhard Mathangani, Patrick Walsh, closing up shop here on a Friday. Patrick, you got a lot of decent games, some great, it's either really great games in my opinion, or some games that, you know what, you can kind of check the box score, so to speak.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting that South Carolina and Texas A&M are playing at 11 a.m. That's going to be a noon Eastern time kick, but over there in College Station, it will be at 11 a.m. Going to be a little bit of a concern that the Aggies might sleepwalk through that game.
Right.
Right. That is a big game for them to get to 10-0. Yeah, well, yeah. And then moving right along, Arkansas taking on LSU, battle of the interim head coaches. Not sure if that's happened before, but we'll have to fact check that. And then an interesting one up in Lexington.
Yeah.
Tennessee Tech, the 10-0 Golden Eagles, taking on Kentucky, who throttled Florida last week. That was one of the more shocking wins of the season.
No question.
And then a big one in Tuscaloosa, 11th ranked Oklahoma taking on the Crimson Tide. That's one of 2 games this weekend that could have major implications on the college football playoff. Moving right along here, New Mexico State taking on Tennessee. Tennessee virtually out of the college football playoff after their 3rd loss. And then moving on to Florida, playing Ole Miss in what could be the Lane Kiffin Bowl. We'll see where he decides to go after this year. And then another one of those college football playoff implication games, Texas taking on Georgia. We just talked with Noah Gross and how he does not like watching Maryland at weddings anymore. And then closing it out here with Mississippi State taking on Mizzou. Mizzou on their third-string quarterback and Matt Zollers. And then Mississippi State trying to get their second win in the SEC under Jeff Lebby in year 2.
I wonder if Billy Napier will be spotted in Athens between the hedges with the burnt orange.
That would be interesting.
With the coaching, like a coaching three-quarter zip. Little jacket there.
We don't need it in Connor Stallions, though. That's definitely what we don't need.
Exactly. No, exactly. What's the most if you're to have one game on with the sound on and the other ones without the sound on, and you can only pick one game, you can only the sound's gonna be off until that game.
So you're saying like a multi-view, and then it's like
Correct.
one with the sound. It's got to be Texas Georgia this weekend.
Texas Georgia,
it has to be.
Yes.
I would say Oklahoma, Alabama.
That was the reason why I was asking.
But it's not a night game.
Okay.
I think
so
it's a 2:30. Oh yeah.
You need some ambiance.
You cannot tell me that a noon kickoff game.
Yeah.
I know it's not noon kickoff, but I'm just saying, you cannot tell me like a noon Big Ten kickoff game is better than a 6:30 SEC game.
No.
Like it's just not right.
Yeah,
that's not football.
Yeah, you're right. There is something to the having the nostalgia and the hype of a night game, and it does certainly feel a lot better there. So those are the matchups there, and you want to get to our handicaps?
So we love to do this right around 3:56 every Friday. It's our Week 12 predictions, and here we go. We're going to start off with South Carolina in that 11 a.m. kick against number 3 Texas A&M. 19.5-point favorites are the Aggies.
You used, I think, the right word here earlier, sleepwalk, and I think that Texas A&M could sleepwalk through this game. I see Texas A&M covering, but late. You'll have to sweat it out.
Backdoor cover?
The backdoor cover, yes, in that game.
I think South Carolina, they're going to find something after firing offensive coordinator Mike Shula. They had an open week last week after the Ole Miss game. I think I could see the Gamecocks making this a 2-score game, and I still think they lose. I think they lose by 14, though.
Right, okay. Nice. Next up, Alabama, Oklahoma. Bama, a 6.5-point favorite.
Yeah, this one's a little bit interesting because it's going to depend on if Alabama does just decide to throw the ball all the time, because if they do and Ty Simpson throws the ball 45 times this game, I think Alabama wins by 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, I'm with you on Alabama, and I think a little bit the same thing as Texas A&M. I think that Mateer has one or two mistakes down the road that gives Alabama the short field. They might have to field goal or touchdown their way into it, but I see a 7 to a 10-point Bama win there.
Florida at number 7, Ole Miss in the Lane Kiffin Bowl. Rebels favored by 13.5.
I see that, and I hate to go all chalk here. There could be some signs of life for Florida. I just think that Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin puts it absolutely on the Gators. Give me the Rebels by 21.
Bad game last week for the Gators against Kentucky. DJ Lagway hasn't looked good all year. Lane Kiffin is hosting 2 recruits for Florida at this game. I think they win by 3 touchdowns.
Wow. Yeah, I'm right there with you. And then the next game up, it is the game of the week, according to you and I.
Yes.
It's Texas and Georgia. And the Bulldogs are 6.5-point favorites.
Yeah, this one I don't really fully understand, because I think it is just the fact that it's between the hedges, but I really like Arch in this game. I know we talked about last time Texas came off an open week. It didn't go well against Florida. I think Texas, I think Noah Gross put it well. They realize, okay, we can't take anyone lightly anymore in this league. And Texas backs against the wall. Again, I said it earlier this week, I would not want to play a Texas team that makes it just squeaks into the college football playoff.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And there's a part of me that wants to take Texas on the money line.
Yeah.
I think that's either going to be Texas on the money line or Georgia kind of runs away with this game in a sneaky fashion. I will say Texas on the money line because I think that Arch will be able to eat up that defense going into this week.
And then Mississippi State at Mizzou, 6.5-point favorites are the Tigers.
I think Jeff Lebby just absolutely blitzes
Really?
Zollers the entire game. I like Mississippi State to get the win and to be bowl eligible.
See, the thing is, I really liked Matt Zollers against Vanderbilt. It's so hard. You couldn't have expected success going up against Texas A&M last week. That was just destined for failure. I think he looks a little bit better this week. Missouri does get the job done, but Mississippi State gets the backdoor cover. They win by 3.
Nice. All right, final thing. Who you got? Pitt, Notre Dame.
Notre Dame by 80.
Notre Dame by 1,000,000 here as well at the College Game Day Society.
Get Pitt out of here. They got demolished last night.
I love it. Thank you so much for joining us on South.